For more than 10 years, the Russian Federation has illegally occupied and attempted to annex Crimea. In the time since, the situation of human rights on the peninsula has drastically deteriorated. Today, the human rights situation in Crimea is a blueprint for how Russia seeks to transform the newly occupied territories of Ukraine. One of our Ukrainian partners, Crimean Human Rights Group, has this to say about the situation, and I quote, "Over the last 10 years, the Russian Federation has established a repressive machine in Crimea aimed at politically motivated persecution, the destruction of independent media, which can now only operate underground, and the total militarization of consciousness, including aggressively among children. Since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, this situation has only deteriorated. We also see that attacks on civilian objects are being launched from the territory of Crimea, despite its protected status under international humanitarian law. This is what a totalitarian regime can do in a very short time in the absence of an appropriate international response." End of quote. Vice President, given the scale of this growing issue in occupied Ukraine, we ask the Deputy High Commissioner what more can be done to facilitate the return of civilian detainees and hostages from the Russian Federation and from the occupied territories of Ukraine. I thank you.
There was a question about how to facilitate the return of civilian detainees and hostages from the Russian Federation and from the occupied territories of Ukraine. This is again about access to detainees in this regard. Our urging the Russian Federation, that is, to provide access to detainees. The grounds for detention are often not disclosed, and other procedural guarantees we have found, such as regular reviews and the possibility to challenge the detention, are not upheld. And therefore, the international community should continue to call for transparency and strengthened compliance with procedural guarantees, and these are critical if we are to prevent torture, arbitrary detention, indeed, and enforced disappearance. The international community may also call for a review of the grounds of detention and internment, particularly if individuals have been detained for some time, and then, of course, call for a release if and where those grounds no longer exist. Particularly important that families of detainees know the whereabouts and fate of their loved ones and be able to remain in contact with them. And so the international community should continue to call on the Russian Federation to facilitate such regular communication. Also, to support the Human Rights Council's working group on enforced or involuntary disappearance, which has this very mandate of establishing the whereabouts of missing persons and facilitating the restoration of family links. And finally, as we have often said, the importance of supporting national institutions and civil society organizations that work in the area of psychosocial support to released detainees and the families of those who remain detained and missing, including assistance programs for victims of torture and survivors of sexual violence.